Prosecution so meaningless, even the defendant is falling asleep, even though he's, I guess, facing prison time for this, which is just insane again. A prosecution so weak it's been laughed away by the DOJ and radically left-wing Southern District of New York. A prosecution described like this last week by Trump himself.
I was paying a lawyer and marked it down as a legal expense. Some accountant, I didn't know, marked it down as a legal expense. That's exactly what it was. And you get indicted over that?
You get indicted over that? You're facing felonies, 34 felonies. It's more than they throw at people for killing somebody in the city these days. But of course, this weak case to destroy Trump has the judge in its corner. They've got that going for them. Merchan willing to do anything to hurt the former president further, today announcing prosecutors in this case can also ask about his civil fraud case, you know, the one where 17 acres on the ocean in Palm Beach is worth $18 million. And also both E. Jean Carroll rulings, you know, the, quote, sexual assault, where the victim invited the defendant into the dressing room. Come here, big boy. Can't remember the year, and also lied about the dress. The truth is, to fall for any of this, you have to be so completely blinded by hatred for this man, which a lot of people are, that you're okay with crumbling some of the foundation of our free society to do so, and just eviscerating blind justice. The truth is, most people aren't. There might be millions of people that hate Donald Trump to this point, and they sit there and OD on MSNBC every night naked in a chair. And many Democrats hate this man, but a lot of them are realizing that this level of lawfare, that what they're doing right now, is going to end in a disaster. They can all see the polling. They can all see the trajectory. It's a two-man race. Yeah, RFK's there, everything else like that, but it's really a two-man race in this country. It's a two-party system. And this is what they're trying to do to one of the people, and the case is this week, 6-7 months before the election. You'd have to be really, really stupid or really, really careless to not understand what this is and to not be terrified about what they're doing. And I think a lot of the Democrat establishment has got to understand that they've taken way too much of this. They've gone way too far here. It has to be. Here's Gavin Newsom attempting to marginalize the reality that they are waking up to as much as possible.
Focusing on him, I do worry electorally that he has a slight advantage. And so I'm a little concerned about the overindulgence around the day-to-day. I get it. I totally get it. The consequential nature of a criminal trial is profound and outsized in some respect, but not more outsized than democracy.
And that was a pretty big euphemism, by the way. All right, despite being a Democrat strategist, Attorney Julian Epstein is able to admit that this case is at least somewhat flawed. And he joins us now for a conversation. And sir, it's good to have you on. I appreciate it.
Rob, thanks for having me.
Of course, the media loves to call this the hush money trial. That's what we keep hearing of it. But the alleged hush money is not illegal. And we know that. Describe how much they had to dig here to try and find something to jail the former president with.
Well, they did more than digging. They had to twist themselves into pretzels to come up with legal theories that have never been used before. And, as I argued, for your viewers' benefit, I'm a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I didn't vote for Trump in 16 or 20. Yeah. And I agree with a lot of what you said. This has gone way, way too far. This is an outrageous excuse. This is an outrageous case. Civil libertarians for decades have been arguing against the selective use of the law against certain groups. I mean, this is a selective and politically motivated use of a law in an unprecedented way. There's a couple of things just before we get to the legal theory. I mean, the conflict of interest here with the prosecutors, not only in the Alvin Bragg case, but in Letitia James' case, both of these prosecutors campaigned on going after Trump. And then once got into office, used legal theories that have essentially never been used before to go after Trump and what I think are complete political prosecutions. This is Joseph Stalin. You show me the man, I'll show you the crime. And the fact that the more people on the left are not outraged by the abuse of the law here, to me, is just unbelievable. So there's the conflict of interest even before you get to the legal theories. Then there's the timing. This conduct in question occurred in 2016. That's 8 years ago. The reporting violation, the alleged reporting violation, occurred in early 2017, about 8 years ago. The fact that the prosecutors in almost all of these cases are waiting to the eve of the election and then strapping Donald Trump down into a courtroom during the height of the election season is just, I don't understand how more people on the left don't see this as complete abuse and a complete breakdown of the system.
Well,
and the fact that they're going along with it, I just think is outrageous.
I think when they spent 7 years now vilifying Trump, I mean, what they've created of this man in their own minds, and I think in the minds of a lot of their viewers and voters, has him deserving of this. And I think that, you know, I don't know what percentage of people, it's certainly not a plurality, but there is a small percentage of people in this country, and maybe it's 20% or 30%, you know, that are hard left and think that all of this is, no matter what they do, they probably think you should just shoot them at this point. And that's how rabid they've gotten.
6%. That's the tragedy of what's going on in our politics. It's 6% of voters who are hard left, but they have, according to numerous polls, they have an outsized influence in social media and the mainstream. I think today, mainstream media, the newsrooms, and certainly the opinion pages. So, but then you get to the theory of the case here. The theory of the case here is that this was election interference. Which is wrong because the reporting requirement that they are alleging Trump violated occurred in 2017, which was after the election. They also sort of skip over the fact that the incredible efforts that were made to suppress the Hunter Biden story in 2020, I mean, if that's not election interference, all of the efforts that were made with former intelligence officials to say it was a Russian plot, I mean, sort of, why isn't that election interference? I mean, that would seem to be election interference on a much greater scale than, say, hush money. But then you actually get to the nuts and bolts of the case, and I think you described it very well. What Bragg is attempting to do here is to bootstrap a misdemeanor bookkeeping violation, and you know, I think a lot of people might put this in sort of, without thinking much about it, into a legal expense category in any case. I don't think people are all that careful when it comes to sort of making the distinctions when you sort of have a legal issue or a political issue that you're trying to make go away. But that's not the big point. The big point here is that they are attempting to bootstrap this to a federal election law, namely the failure of the Trump team in 2017 to report the hush money as a campaign expenditure. Okay, so first of all, there is no precedent in the law that says hush money in a context like this would be considered a campaign expenditure. So the failure to report it in 2017, by definition, can't be a violation of the law, even if you were to accept the absurd attempt on the part of Bragg to bootstrap the bookkeeping account to a federal election law violation. But and there's a very important point about this your viewers have to understand. There is a former FEC chair and a former FEC commissioner who have both said, and wrote a beautiful piece in the Wall Street Journal saying that, explaining why hush money would not be required to be reported on the Federal Election Commission reporting forms that you do quarterly. So if you have the officials who are in charge of enforcing the law saying that hush money expenditures are not reportable campaign expenditures, then by definition, Trump cannot have violated it because you have a intent requirement.
Yeah.
So how can Trump have intended to violate a reporting requirement when the officials in charge of enforcing that requirement have said there's no such requirement? So, you know, you can go down multiple levels of absurdity on this thing. You can just sort of keep going down. And there's one.
Okay, go ahead. Finish real quick.
One last point. 10 seconds. If Donald Trump's last name was not Trump, this case would never be brought.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that more people on the left, that's one thing that everyone on the left and right should agree to, that you do not use the law in a political way against your political opponents. And that's exactly what's being done here. It is an outrageous abuse of the law.
And I imagine that's why you're speaking out, even though a Democrat strategist, it's just to see something this egregious has led you to do this? Yeah.
Yes, it's completely egregious. And I think there's a lot about some of the other cases are egregious as well. The Letitia James case was just outrageous. The award was outrageous. The theory was outrageous. There, again, no precedent for it. I've been critical of Donald Trump and certain things he's done. But the use of the law in this sort of lawfare strategy is just
scary.
You are opening, it is Katie bar the door. There are theories on which, if Donald Trump is elected, he could bring cases against both Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. So the Democrats are opening the floodgates for that kind of retribution. And that, when we get into that kind of situation, then God save us all.
It's a good point. Great conversation. Julian Epstein, attorney, we thank you so much. We appreciate it, sir.
Rob, thanks for having me. Good to be with you.
Of course.